So, ladies and gentlemen, this is William Keat of commonlawconstitution.org and lawandalchemy.org, and long overdue. For the first time, I have with me Damien Lepts, who some of you will be aware of because I've been doing some videos. Damien invited me very kindly to join him on the 17th century history videos that you've been probably watching, I hope. And if you haven't, you should have been. Damien, fantastic to have you on. And I've got Calvin Perrins with me as well, who is a little newer to this whole thing, but is an absolute warrior on it and has done a huge amount of work on this as well, and is putting out a lot of his own stuff as well. And we'll get to that at the end because I'm going to get you guys to say where your information can be found as well. So we'll do that as well. But the aim of today is to have a few mutual rants and and discussion about all the things that are going on at the moment. Um, and we'll get into some interesting things, no doubt, but focusing very much on constitutional law, trial by jury, and we'll see where we go. Certainly, one of the things that we're going to be discussing in a few minutes, a little later on, is what's been going on over the last 2 days in following the release of the David Lammy leak, which is a sort of a threat, if you like, that we're going to take the Leveson review and the proposals of the Leveson review and make it even worse, in fact. And now what we're seeing is a lot of people getting quite hot under the collar, kind of, and we'll get into that as well. But so, Damien, welcome. Very good to see you. I just wanted to start with, do you want to say anything about our activities and excitements on the 17th century history stuff? Because that's been pretty busy for both of us. Do you want to take us through what's been going on that front?
So I suppose it started with constitutional law and obviously how that tails off into the history aspect of things. So what I wanted to do was go back, and I suppose that's where all the ideas came from.
Yeah,
And the whole idea was to try and tie it in with what's going on now and why we're experiencing this perpetual state of tyranny, war,
yes.
all that kind of stuff. And it got interesting, but like halfway through, like we started on like James the First, didn't we? And then
Yeah, I
we got on
sometimes
to
forget.
Charles, didn't we?
Yeah, we did a lot earlier on in the 17th century, and I forget that one as well. And
But we had to move along quick, didn't we? So we had to get to like kind of late 17th century,
pretty
the
fast.
Glorious Revolution and all that because of how people are with the Bill of Rights and that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it was to try and educate as well, to be honest, Will,
exactly.
because there's a lot of misconceptions surrounding the Bill of Rights, and I'm pretty sure we'll get into some of that in this conversation.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that was the main aim, and to be honest, I'm enjoying it. I mean, I didn't really do a lot of history at school. I wasn't really interested. We did a lot of like First, Second World War, Vietnam, and all that kind of stuff. We didn't do early stuff. So when I started getting into this, yeah, I found myself really interested in it. So I started like reading quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm the same actually because I wasn't the greatest academic at school. And anyone from my old world who might be watching this will be guffawing. um, because I was not a successful academic. I don't think it was that I didn't have enough brain. I just somehow didn't get into it. I didn't trust it. I didn't, you know. And history was a nightmare for me as well. It was one of my worst subjects. But now you're right. I'm absolutely into it. It's been fascinating. So
It was
appreciate the invitation as well for joining you on it.
no, you're welcome. You're welcome. It was good to get you to join in with it, to be
Yeah,
honest, with the research side of it, because there's a lot of information.
there is,
So it's
and I'm getting a lot of contact from people. Not a lot, but I'm fairly regular. I'm getting the odd email of people saying, "Wow, the 17th century history videos that you're doing. I'm going to watch that one again. It's completely opening up my understanding to what really has been going on. So I'm getting some good things back from people, which you should know. But
No, that's really good. That's
yeah,
really good.
it's been really
Good
really
stuff.
positive. That yeah. Um, but you're right. There are some extraordinary parallels with what's going on at the moment. Calvin, over to you on this one because you're pretty hot on this natural law stuff as well. In fact, I think, have been doing. I mean, I went into the Mark Passio material like years ago, but because you've done it more recently, you're kind of pretty hot on it. In fact, you've just put out, and people should go and have a look actually on Substack, a really interesting piece on symbology, pre-Egyptian symbology, and going into the Cometian period and all of that. So, which I recognise is partly, at least, from the Passio material. But the reason why I'm asking you actually is because Damien and I are noticing parallels here about behaviours and what's going on in the 17th century history about things like people going along with stuff, which is a big theme of mine. People just going along with things that they shouldn't be going along with, and how immorality comes about often through what you're prepared to kind of just go along with and remain silent over. That's a big theme. So we're getting these
Mm.
parallels between what's going on in the 17th century history and what's happening now. Have we really improved? What do you think? Give us your opinions on all of that kind of stuff.
Uh,
Just a small one, just a lightweight topic.
well, yeah, keep it light. I don't know, it's like a gradual decay in the knowledge of the objective difference between right and wrong,
Yeah,
and well, basically humanity needs to get to a point where we're all connected. That we need to know that we're all connected through the quality of our behaviour, which
yes,
ties directly into why we have a tribunal to address behaviours that are out of alignment with objective morality so that we can deal with it equitably.
yeah, yes. So the understanding of equity and and individual rights, free will, is not really being understood, I guess, isn't it?
Mm.
Um, do you want to? Yeah. So the behaviours of people, we're not really seeing an improvement. You think it's a decline?
Well, it's the main problem, especially at present, is order following because that's what keeps the whole system in place, just blindly going along with it,
Yeah.
regardless of the morality or immorality of which essentially is government legislation.
Yes.
So you ha people need to exercise their conscience um, to ascertain whether what they're being asked to do individually or as a society is it moral.
Yeah.
And if it isn't, then we need to be calling it out because if we don't, then we only perpetuate the condition of human slavery that is being uh, thrust upon us at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the nub of the issue that you've got to, isn't it? I suppose is that it comes down to what would happen if the government produced something so unconscionable, so outrageous. Would that just have to be law and we just put up with it because the government tells us that it's okay? Because that's the behaviour that I seem to be seeing certainly now,
Mm.
is that ultimately the problem lies in the fact that people believe that ultimately what is okay and what isn't is whatever's written by the government. That's it. That seems to be, and that's a form of order following. Yeah,
Yes, yes, and moral relativism because you're going along with essentially immoral orders
yeah.
in
By
the form
whoever's
of
decided by a
yeah,
group.
whoever has decided. Well, that's what moral relativism is.
Yeah.
It's somebody deciding what is right and wrong for everybody else.
Yes.
So morality has to be aligned with individually and societally in order for there to be like a harmonious existence. Because, and that's why things are in such a bad shape now, because people aren't aware of the behaviors of the immoral behaviors that add up in the aggregate to create the conditions that we're experiencing.
Yeah,
And that's a really bad place to be in, because essentially what the final result of that is chaos.
yeah, precisely. Yeah, yeah. So what people I think are not understanding, because I think people have difficulty when they sort of throw the term natural law around without really understanding what it is. And in fact, a
Mm,
surprising number of people actually think that that's another man-made thing.
mm,
And it isn't. It's actually cause and effect. They don't understand that
yeah,
the laws of reality, the laws of the natural order, are that when you exhibit certain behaviors and you take certain decisions and you make certain actions, there are going to be repercussions and implications of those decisions and actions that not only you take, but the ones that you don't take as well and ignore.
yes,
And so, I mean, Damien, we've spotted some extraordinary things in the stuff that we've been doing in the lead up to the Bill of Rights, um, in particularly in the way of what people are not paying attention to, but also sort of outrageous stuff that they know they're engaging in, behaviors that people are engaging in, but they're having to sort of it gets worse because they have to kind of cover it up. And so what have we got? We got like people like Titus Oates, and
Yeah.
give us a bit of a rundown of some of your favourite misbehaviours that we've seen in the
Well, the Popish plot's got to be up there. Titus Oates.
yeah,
That was serious stuff. You know, a lot of people were hung on those testimonies. It's just, I mean, just changing the subject slightly for me with the natural law stuff and with the history stuff.
yeah,
Generally, people know they're wrong or they're acting wrong or they know
yes,
what they're doing is wrong.
yeah,
But other people kind of sit on the fence, I found. So they're not
yeah,
actually standing up for truth or standing up for what's right. That was a big thing. Uh,
so do you think that that's so their inaction or correct action or the lack of correct action is happening through a state of vulnerability, of fear.
mm,
Is that what we're saying? They're basically scared of either standing up for truth and being the only one who's doing it and calling it out, or just feel more comfortable in just going along with stuff because the broader group is doing that already and just flowing with it, and they just want to go with it as well, getting into kind
yeah,
of
I think that they're trying to wait and see how stuff pans out before they commit to something.
right.
But
Okay.
even then, they're not committing to what's right. They're not committing to truth, basically.
Yes.
They're committing to the opposite. What I've
Yeah.
found with history, terrible, terrible period,
Yeah.
17th century for that
Yeah.
kind of
It's awful,
stuff.
isn't it?
But generally, the people who were involved know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they've just, the lying and all that kind of stuff is just blatant. But people outside of that, that's what I wanted to concentrate on because it's not just it's basically standing up for it. Our silence is just as bad
Yeah.
and is, as Calvin was saying before, it takes people in the aggregate to change things. So our decision making, not based on truth, not based on morality, is adding to what we're
Totally.
experiencing, which what I was talking about before, war, tyranny, and it's just a cycle of that same behavior. What I've found to what we're experiencing now with
Totally.
trial by jury, and I know people are talking about it now, but how long has it been, and why now?
Right. I mean absolutely, and that's taking us into the last couple of days, which has been unbelievable. is perhaps we should just get into that because this is like the contemporary issues of what we're seeing now. So for those who are new to this, over the last year, we've been aware of the Leveson review. And the Leveson review is, and before the Leveson review started, let's go back even a little bit further. What we're basically talking about is trial by jury, the bedrock of our justice system in the English law tradition. Um, and basically, what's been happening is that gradually over centuries, there's been a whittling away of the feature of trial by jury itself, which is, as I say, the bedrock of our justice system. And it's been gradually whittled away to the point where only 1% of cases actually reach the Crown Court, which is where we, at the moment, receive a jury. If we're to be taken before court, it's only in the Crown Court where that happens. So the number of cases that actually are heard before a jury, either indictable or it's an either way offence where you take it to the Crown Court, is 1% of cases. So we're already in a really bad situation. And then a year ago, because of a rather manufactured situation, we think, probably over at least 20, if not 25 years, maybe even longer, we've got a situation where there's been an underfunding of the justice system, um, and a sort of just the beginnings. You can see the start of a collapse, really, which we're seeing in all kinds of ways. And if people don't know, how is that manifesting? It's manifesting in to do with things like not enough people in the legal profession because of some policies that were taken in around 2016-17, I think it was. People have been leaving the legal profession, particularly those on the front line with legal aid. That's where the work is really done, and there aren't enough lawyers. And so we've got that. We've got the sort of the crumbling courts estate where we've got physical courts just in a hell of a state. And lawyers themselves are very much aware of going into court and there being bowls under kind of leaks in the roof and all this sort of stuff. You've got prisoners from not being brought to court efficiently by what's called the escort system. So when prisoners are brought back to court and they're meant to be transported by a system that have been put in place by companies like Serco and all of that lot, that's inefficient, and suddenly you find that everybody's assembled for a hearing or whatever it is, and the defendant hasn't turned up because he hasn't been brought to court. So you've got these cancellations going on, absolute chaos, and the legal profession are only too aware of this, of course. But what's happening, just this is a bit of a long one, sorry guys, just to give the viewers the sort of sense of it, is that now with the Leveson review that kicked off a year ago, what's happening is that we've got proposals centering around the fact that, well, the way that we're going to win back time, because we've got this chaos developing and a massive backlog of 78,000 cases in the Crown Court, for example, is to take out trial by jury even further, when in fact we're already only on 1% anyway. And in fact, what we're noticing over the last couple of days, because people have woken up, people have suddenly noticed this in the mainstream world and the legal profession generally, is that they're kicking off about it, because the legal profession actually quite like trial by jury, which sometimes is a bit of a surprise to the freedom movement, I think. But what's interesting is that they are making these arguments, but what they're not making is the arguments about constitutional law. They're starting to say, that yeah, we mustn't lose trial by jury any further. This is outrageous, and they're kicking off about it. But then we get some interesting excuses as to, or explanations as to how we think we might push back on this. And we get excuses like, well, it wasn't in Keir Starmer's manifesto, so therefore that will be the reason why they shouldn't be getting rid of trial by jury. These kind of weak excuses come up, but nothing about constitutional law. So the calling out, which is what, Damien, you were just talking about just there, we're allowing weak arguments to ensue, and therefore the calling out is not really happening effectively and properly. Calvin, have you got any observations? Because I know that, Damien, you weren't on that particularly yesterday, I don't think. You've got plenty of other stuff you've been doing like video editing of our last video.
Yeah.
But Calvin, I know you were absolutely immersed in this little business yesterday. What were you seeing on Twitter? Because we were on it as well, and it was fascinating what was blowing up over the last couple of days. What kind of things were you noticing?
There's two main things. There was a group of people who understood that trial by jury is about the citizenry being the final arbiter of law by exercising conscience over the legislation to keep the government in place
Yeah.
so that tyranny doesn't prevail. There was some people who were really passionate about that. Then there was another group of people saying this is a disgrace. Um, let's vote on it on the next election, essentially, or reform will reverse this. Um, this wasn't in the manifesto, so they're putting the onus on legislation them, allowing them to exercise conscience and natural justice
Right.
in the jury, which is why we have a constitution in the
Yeah,
first
so we've got
place.
a kind of double think going on, a kind of cyclic argument that doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, and or confusion.
And or confusion. Or is it deliberate? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just unbelievable. So, but
Mm.
you're right. I mean, just to clarify that logic, what they're sort of saying is that this is, and in fact, people in the legal profession are saying over the last couple of days, this is outrageous. Trial by jury is a bedrock. It's a right. It's a fundamental. I wrote down some words and things. I've got some notes here actually. What else did they? What were they using? Yeah, all these words that they were using, like it being a fundamental. Well, if it's a fundamental, um, why are we just not calling it out constitutionally? Why are we just saying, hang on a minute, government, you just can't do this? You're actually acting illegally and unlawfully in what you are doing. But that kind of language is not coming forth, I notice, from most people. And so exactly what you've just said is that their lack of understanding is that the stop on what we know to be unlawful behavior isn't calling it out because it's unlawful. It's saying we must get in a party that will defeat it at the next election, or it's like, or we must mount a petition to persuade and plead with them that they should not be doing. Is that the sense of it? Is that what you're picking up? That's,
Yes, it's not understanding that this is actually a morality issue because
yeah.
if the people can't decide on the justice of the law that they are to abide by, then they are under duress.
Yes.
So this appears to be a limitation of free will to remove a nation's ability to exercise conscience over the laws that they are to abide by. And this is a very, very slippery slide to go down, and
Yeah.
we can't let it happen. So
Yeah.
this really needs to be educated, within the public and especially the establishment and the judiciary.
And probably it would be actually because I was sort of halfway through that, and for those that are relatively new to this, just to finish off that clarity, is that the point of the jury is not only to provide decent justice for the defendant, which is critically important anyway, but of course the other point is that that is your safeguard against unjust legislation, because through jury independence. So, if for those of are not understanding or new to this, the second sort of hidden purpose, if you like, of a jury is to disagree with the state over its legislation. So, in addition to the defendant being judged in court, you've also got the fact that they might, well, they're putting that piece of legislation that brought the defendant into court, they're putting that to the test as well, and basically saying, yeah, he breached the legislation, but frankly, I don't care because, according to my conscience, he shouldn't be punished. And so that's the pushback that the citizenry should have against the state and its legislature, and that's not being understood. That piece is not being understood as well by certainly by the legal profession, because they're encouraged to believe that that's just an awkward anomaly. That's just an embarrassing thing that we don't really want to have to talk about, because it's a lie. We're kind of circular argument lying to ourselves about this kind of stuff. So that's an important right, and in fact, it's actually written in the recent Trudy Warner case judgment, where that was all laid out by Justice Saini quite clearly. But they're quite happy to prop up the lie that, well, we shouldn't tell the jury. Right, but you're saying it's a right and it's constitutional at the same time as denying them that information and even lying to them about it. So we've got this kind of endless kind of double think and gaslighting about these kinds of matters. I don't know whether I was certainly spotting that yesterday on Twitter, but really interesting day yesterday as we were starting to uncover this stuff. What are your views, Calvin, on that being do we think that is a contrivance? I don't know, because suddenly we're seeing people who haven't been talking about this before, and that's what Damien was saying. People remaining silent about it all the way through this last year, or pretty much when we could have educated the public over it,
Yes.
who've actually been saying nothing, without naming names, obviously. But what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it makes you wonder because a lot of people appear to know about Magna Carta, and especially Article 39. No enforcement can be made without the judgment of jury of peers.
Yeah.
But then there's commentators who have basically dismissed Magna Carta and the Constitution and the rule of law,
Yes.
and now they're all over it. Now that it's in the public's mind, and it's so contradictory to their. I just, I'd like to know what their actual stance is, because it's such an important topic that we need a lot of people speaking the truth, and
And we're not
it's
seeing it, are we,
and we're
really?
not seeing it. No, it's contrived and it's contradictory, and I'm like, what are you up to? So so yeah, these specifics need to be nailed down, and
Yeah.
especially with people in the justice system itself, because this has opened up a can of worms for the entire establishment, and it's put everything on the table regarding what really is natural justice.
Yes.
And there has been some really good conversations, and some people have had some really good things. Have said some really good things. Really. So yeah, we just need to keep that momentum going.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And to the viewers generally, please don't remain silent about it. There are not many of us out there actually doing this and
Mm.
encouraging this conversation in these spaces. Yeah. I mean, I know Twitter isn't everything, but it is interesting how you can start to wake people up. I mean, I was tweeting as we you, Calvin, as well. One or two interesting things to people in the legal profession that, this is a little bit of a tricky situation now, guys, isn't it, actually? Because if you're saying that this is a fundamental right, trial by jury, this is this is the bedrock or the cornerstone or any of these other words that you're using, then either it's a principle or it isn't. You can't say that this is a fundamental, but only up to this point, only up to the amount that I'm happy with. Yeah, it's not about the degree of something. Because as soon as you say, yeah, we can have this fundamental principle, but just this much, you can't do that, right? Either it's a principle or it isn't a principle, right? And if it is a principle, now you're into a very sticky situation. Because where does that leave us with the magistrates' court? Where does that leave us with summary trial, right? And you've been allowing that and going along with it for all this time. Yeah, summary trial was really started in the late 1880s, I think, where they tentatively put their toe in the water for the first time and started to say, well, actually, maybe we, for the first time, you won't get a jury necessarily. And I think they made it a choice back then. So that was the beginnings of the either way thing. And they wanted to do that. He was a bit nervous about doing it. Well, actually, if this is a fundamental and you're saying that this is a right, and as it seems to say, by the way, in the Articles of Common Law in the 1215 Magna Carta, then we're onto a bit of a sticky situation now because where the hell does that leave us now for for all the time since then, and the magistrates' court. So we've got so Damien, this is and we noticed this in the 17th century history stuff. If you entrench a lie, now you're in a deep problem because you've got to try and unpick that, and you can't, right? And so then you have to just tell another lie to kind of to make it even worse, which we were noticing, weren't we? In the
I think the main point here is the understanding. Now, talking about trial by jury and talking about the Magna Carta is one thing, but if that
yeah,
understanding isn't there, because
yes,
to me, nobody's talking about self-governance.
right,
Because that's what it's about. It's not just about the mechanism of trial by jury, it's how that operates, how that works, and how
yeah,
it's a check on government and how it's a check on legislation. And we're actually dictating how, what legislation can be passed in that. So for me, I think like I watched something yesterday and it was somebody in the freedom movement who is quite big talking about the Magna Carta and talking about the 1297 and stuff like that, but also he shared a video of Rupert Lowe talking about the government's failings constitutionally. And his actual quote, word for word, was that MPs should be like gods, the
yes, I
representatives
saw
of
that.
the people who
Yeah, I
should
saw
be
that.
driving the agenda and law.
Yeah,
And I'm like, well, people in the freedom movement are sharing videos like that. I'm like, well, we clearly don't know. So I think, yeah, I think there needs to be, it's good that people are talking about it, but to me, it's still not enough
yeah, it's
because that
shallow.
understanding isn't there, that clarity isn't there.
It's not there. No, you're right. It
I
isn't.
think people are just diving on it now just to criticize government.
Yeah. Yes,
Mm.
it's that people are not being nuanced enough, and they're not grown up enough in their understanding of the topic. That's the problem. And so what happens is that you get kind of like false spokespeople who put out kind of slightly shallow arguments for what you think on the surface is the right thing. You think they're making the right argument because they're rooting for the thing, yeah, trial by jury or whatever it is, but they're using the wrong arguments, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of people in the freedom movement, and we just had it this morning. Somebody was saying, oh, someone was putting an argument out and rooting for trial by jury. It was one of the lawyers on Twitter, I think, but using completely the wrong arguments to do it. And so the difficulty is that many people, particularly in the freedom movement, think, oh, you're just being picky about the arguments they use. No, it matters logically
Yeah.
because it's going to come back to bite you later if you prop up the narrative that's incorrect and is propped up with a false argument that you can then tear down later. Now you're in a sticky situation because yeah, he was saying the right thing, but sort of by mistake, if you like, through the wrong arguments, and they're going to come back to bite you later because that will then be shown to be false, and then you're vulnerable to the argument coming back on you. So that's exactly it. That's the problem, is that people are not seeing the subtlety and they're not using their critical thinking to understand, well, what is the foundational basis for trial by jury and for natural justice? You have to understand the whole stack of concepts all the way down. Because if all of that is not positioned correctly and each argument is not founded on the correct thing underneath, on truth, then the whole thing will come crashing down. Your argument that you think is right and you think you're doing the right thing, you're actually just undermining yourself, and you're probably creating a problem for other people as well who are also trying to make the right arguments. So I completely agree with you, and we're seeing that all over the freedom movement. They're not getting solid on why it is. Well, first of all, they're not getting solid on why trial by jury is the most critical thing, because that's your that's your defense against all the legislation, not just the one this week that we're hearing about, the nightmare that's being proposed, the latest bill that you're going to have to get up in arms about. If you get this bit sorted out, which is your framework of governance, and you understand the limitations that are placed on government and why, then it deals with all of this problem. And that's what I'm not seeing is
Yes.
not enough interest in the causal factors. Calvin, you always go on about cause and effect, quite rightly. Um,
Yes.
that's the issue, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Massively. Yeah. I really make a big point about this because yeah, people are essentially trapped in what is known as the plane of effects, which is the manifested reality that we're dealing with now, and you can only deal with that through dealing with causal factors, which is the plane of causality, which is in the mind. It's sorting your thinking out so that you can address these factors,
Yeah,
so then you can change the trajectory so that the manifested reality then becomes to your preference. But that only happens through aligning with principles of natural justice.
yes,
And another big to add further to what you just said regarding the attitudes and the arguments online and whatnot, they don't seem to understand legitimacy.
absolutely precisely. I was going to say, go on.
They All this nonsense about manifestos, referenda, and voting, which is majority rule or majority opinion. Majority opinion does not represent morality or justice
Or truth.
or truth.
Yeah,
That that can only be thrashed out in a tribunal
yeah,
through the exercise through exercising conscience. That I mean that's the esoteric purpose of the tribunal is to is that's how we align with natural law as a community by thrashing it all out.
yeah,
The evidence, everything um in front of a petite jury.
yeah.
And that's how you deal with things properly. You don't just lazily vote on something. I mean, for argument's sake, okay, let's say we had a vote on the jury. What if people voted to remove it? That's an illegitimate system.
Yeah.
It's
You're
not based
absolutely
in
right.
principle or truth.
Yes, yes. People are. This is how it becomes morally subjective and
Yes.
slippery. Is because if you base it all in the plane, to use that your term there, of political opinion, then everything becomes the sort of the whim of political opinion, and you're
Mm.
denying the fact that there is greater truth here. There's something higher, So if we said something outrageous, like and we've used this argument before that or this example before, like let's say the government are becoming so tyrannical that they propose a piece of legislation that all male teachers are to be castrated in order to protect children or protect women in society or something like that. I don't know, something absolutely outrageous. I'm sure there'll be some out there that would think that would be a great idea. But I think most of us would agree that that is quite obviously and quite clearly an absolutely disgusting proposal, and that no society, would go along with something like that. So straight away, you're making the moral judgment immediately and you're recognizing that that is absolutely repugnant and disgusting. Yeah. And so at that point that you can disagree with that your conscience is kicking in, that there's something deeply wrong about that. So that's the evidence there, right there, if you like, that simply the decision of the legislator is not what it's all about, and that it can be wrong and it can be immoral and it can be against truth.
Yes.
Right. So that's kind of what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the legislator falls out of alignment with truth, essentially.
Mm.
And we all have to call that out and recognize that, including the legal profession. They have to
Yes.
be protecting also everybody else and stepping up in their responsibilities to call that kind of thing out and know that not all legislation that's put in place by the legislature is automatically okay, black belt
Mm.
barrister and
Yes.
others.
And because the king in his oath swore to govern according to our laws and customs, it was
Yes,
automatically assumed that legislation would be in alignment, would be constitutional. So that's
yes,
why legislation isn't mentioned in the Great Charter, because he swore to govern according to our laws and customs.
absolutely.
So it's understand people really need to get their head round the fact that the Constitution binds the legislation, and if it isn't in alignment with the Constitution, it's automatically a nullity.
Yeah, they have no understanding of limitations on government. Otherwise, what the hell's the
Mm,
point of a constitution? If a constitution, and I said that
exactly.
on Twitter yesterday, and I think it's funny actually how the most profound points are the ones they don't respond to because it's bloody awkward. You've hit the spot and they're still thinking about it, and there's kind of like brain short circuitry going on there. And yeah, I said something like that at one point that, what's the point of the Constitution if it doesn't bind and limit government? So there must be standards here or points at which the government steps into illegitimacy, which is what you were just talking
Yes.
about. Understanding what is legitimate and what isn't. Yeah, and that's the whole basis of a constitution. It has to be a legitimate framework that defines where the government is stepping out of legitimacy into illegitimacy, which means that they would be committing a crime. Government
Yes.
commits a crime. So the very notion or the idea that government can be criminal is just too much for quite a lot of
Mm.
mainstreamers, and it's just
I think
horrendous.
the worst thing is how can government tamper with constitutional law? The framework that is there to stop them from becoming criminal. So how can they alter it?
Exactly.
That's exactly the point. I mean, that's where it takes you next, isn't it, Damien? That's exactly what you just said, which is that the Constitution itself must have a mechanism in itself, within itself, to say that the government can't change this mechanism. Yeah, and yet we've got hordes of people, both in the mainstream and in the freedom movement, propping up this ridiculous notion that acts and statutes can contain constitutional law. And of course, Damien, that's where we get to the whole problem around the Bill of Rights, and this is precisely why the Bill of Rights is a problem, because right there, and also interestingly, and we often forget this, is that the just playing into Calvin's point just now, is that the Coronation Oath Act of 1688 contained within it the additional piece of text that the king governs not just to laws and customs, which is basically, as you say, Calvin, legendary, the law of the land, the proper common law. Now, in 1688, in that act, we're going to add in and statutes agreed on in Parliament, right? And you previously didn't have that in there. Why? Because all statutes are to be regarded as must needing to be in alignment with constitutional law. It was a given that a statute is, it was understood that a statute is unlawful if it's out of alignment with the Constitution, with the common law. Yeah. But now, by adding that little piece in there, which was in 1688 in preparation for the Bill of Rights,
Mm.
so what it's doing is it's sort of indicating perhaps that the king might want to govern according to unconstitutional statutes as well.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a problem. The more you start to unpack, Damien, about the that period of 1688-9, the more tricky the whole of that thing starts to appear. And we haven't got to that in our series yet, have we, about the Bill of Rights? But
No,
that,
but that's
that's
going
going
to
to
be
be the next
interesting.
one, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting.
Oh,
I
Yeah, so
think
it's like they
people,
gave themselves, sorry.
no, go on, Calvin, you're all right.
So it's like they gave themselves free rein to make legislation and then legitimised it through majority vote.
that's exactly it.
So as long as the people vote, they can make whatever legislation they want. And
Yeah,
then the government turns and say, well, you voted for this party. This has got to last for 4 years. Tyranny has to last for a term. And then you can try and vote it out next time. It's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah, that's the lie, is that you as the population give your consent simply through the fact that you have this right to vote a party into office.
Mm.
And that's exactly it. That's what was going wrong at the Bill of Rights, is that it was bringing about this new constitutional arrangement, purported constitutional arrangement. We're going to pretend that it's legitimate,
Mm.
which is where ultimately you're going to end up with a situation where the opinion of the majority will effectively deliver policy and law based on your opinion, and you're just going to force it on the individual rights of the minority. And that's going against natural justice, the principles of natural justice, and it's going against the principles that were contained within the Magna Carta. So, and I'm going to put a video out about this soon, actually comparing the two types of constitution, the real one, the legitimate one, and the illegitimate one, and looking back at all of the principles in natural justice and seeing, comparing those two. I've done the slides for it. I've got to find a time to actually put it together. But yeah, that's exactly it.
Do you know what
And
compounds the fracture is the term constitutional statutes.
yeah,
Yes, well put.
It's,
Absolutely.
it's an
Contradiction.
impossibility,
Yeah, it's complete contradiction.
because, it's limited, isn't it? It can be, even with the Bill of Rights, it's protected. I'm sure it is protected, but it's been tampered with. Section 2, Section 3.
Section 3 was removed.
Yeah,
Not many people know about that one. And you're right, Damien. That's the one that made reference to all the prior charters and the Magna Carta.
yeah.
Therefore, why would you take that one out then? Oh yeah,
But even
yeah,
within the freedom movements, we're naturally elevating government legislation to a
yes,
status that is just completely untrue.
yes, that's part of the self-sabotage,
mm.
right there.
Mm.
Yeah, if you prop up the principle of this or the new fake constitution, if you elevate that and prop it up, then what you're elevating and propping up is these false ideas that the opinion of the majority can ride roughshod over. Exactly right. Yeah.
And that's why, even with the Magna Carta, we don't address the Great Charter. We're talking about legislative rewrites. We're talking about the 1297 and giving that, power, basically,
Yes, the
Mm.
which is
1297
annoying.
Magna Carta is not really where the authority comes from. It's taken it all in its 29 chapters or whatever it is. And it's broadly speaking correct. They don't adhere to it, even that version. But obviously, anything that's written down by the legislature and by government or the king prior to the more formal arrangement of parliament, doesn't matter whether it was before or after. The king is your government essentially back
Yeah.
then. Anything written in the form of legislation is not where your authority comes from. Exactly it.
No.
Yeah.
But you used the word consent a minute ago, and I think that's really important because all this "I do not consent," we hear that a lot.
Yes.
So how do we not consent to tyranny?
Well, this
We
is
ha we have a
that's a,
tribunal, we have the jury, the law of the land, which predates Magna Carta. This is nothing new.
yeah. Yeah, you're
That's a
right.
good point. That's a good point, Calvin. What you've just said, it predates the Magna Carta, because I've heard a lot of ex-lawyers and people even in the freedom movements that believe that's where it started. Because
Yeah.
those principles of trial by jury were expressed in the 1215 Magna Carta, that's where it all started, without actually going back further.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. There was a video I watched the other day of the politician Daniel Hannan speaking from the monument at Runnymede. And it sounded wonderful. He's very eloquent, of course, and many of them are. But he got that wrong, saying that Magna Carta gave us those rights. No, they already existed before. Not only did they already exist in the customs of the Constitution of England, but they also pre-exist in truth as well.
Yes,
So he's not
yes,
understanding those two levels as well. That Magna Carta wasn't new. It wasn't all new at that point. The Constitution existed prior to that, and that was the whole point of why they were
Mm.
able to try King John at his effectively what was really his trial by jury, because he'd already got an oath that he'd taken and he'd broken. And people are missing this. That's how the Pope, for example, didn't annul. Right? Is he had no business because John in 1213 didn't have any business to be um, handing England over as a fief to Rome. They have no business to be doing that because there are conditions for his kingship, and people are
Yes.
missing this clarity because they
Mm.
haven't got these arguments and this clarity. They're really struggling to make these arguments. They're
Mm.
actually quite simple when you know all of these things,
Mm.
but you have to do the reading. But are people doing the reading generally? Do you guys reckon?
I don't think so. It's a straight no for me.
It's a straight no.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes,
just
it's
that what you've just said about John having the authority to give England away is just nonsense.
Yeah.
To believe that, is just it's
Oh,
mind.
but King John was under duress, so it must have been wrong. It's just
I
there's
think
no understanding there at all.
yeah, the nation was under duress. That's why they had to do it.
Yeah,
They had
yeah,
to hold him to account.
yeah.
Get back in
Absolutely.
line, fulfill your oath.
That's a key thing, isn't it? Is that people don't understand that the event of Runnymede itself that produced Magna Carta was King John on trial,
Mm.
essentially, isn't it? That's what people aren't clear on. Yeah, once people
Hmm.
understand that he was on trial for crimes, for not only general crimes against humanity and violence, but he was also on trial for breaching his coronation oath.
Yes.
Now, when you unpack that,
Mm.
I think that people would have the greater clarity and understanding. But even David Starkey doesn't really understand that either.
Well,
No, interesting.
the oath is critical, isn't it? It's the cornerstone. Because all public servants, even police, swear oaths and allegiance to the king, who in turn swore to govern according to our laws and customs, which is the
Yes.
sovereign voice of the people, judging on the justice of the law to uphold their liberties in trial by jury.
Yeah.
So the
Precisely.
king cedes sovereignty to us, and this whole confusion of seeing government, which is only the king's administration anyway, seeing them as an authority is that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a massive problem of the mind, because people automatically assume that they can legislate whatever they want, and that's not the case. That's why we have a constitution to bind all the public servants to protect, so that the citizenry can protect themselves from crime, and especially crime from public servants.
Absolutely bang on. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No. No, thank you for that because that's what people. Well, the mainstream world can't deal with the idea that government can act criminally,
Mm.
that public servants can act criminally by not adhering to the constitutional principles. That's been airbrushed out, that idea. So these are the kinds of things that we've been discussing over the last coming up to nearly an hour or so that the freedom movement need to get good at discussing. That's what I've been saying for years now, is that you need to get this good at discussing this stuff. And if you don't do the reading and you don't watch the videos and get into the topic and practice discussing it and doing all of those things, well, quite frankly, you're not going to be able to do it. If you can't express the reasons behind the truth of your sovereignty, then you're not going to embody it. It's not going to become a reality. And it requires the people to stand up for those principles that are contained within the Constitution. If you don't do that, then your Constitution, what it's embodying, and the conditions that it requires of society will not become a reality. I suppose that's what we're saying, isn't it? You will not manifest that reality of freedom.
Yes.
Calvin, tell us about the rule of freedom in a society.
Yeah, the law of freedom. So It works like this: as objective morality increases in the aggregate, the condition of human freedom increases proportionally. So this is all about morality and aligning with principles of moral law. If a society, and that is why the trial by jury is also known as a natural law tribunal, because behaviours out of alignment with moral law are dealt with by the community where those infringes happened in order to maintain harmony within the community. So, as Damien said earlier, it's self-governance.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah, and self-governance, Damien, is about taking responsibility, isn't it? It's about what we're
Yeah,
challenged to do.
I think people need to get their morality straightened out.
Yeah. And what that is, and let's be clear, because that's not us being vicars. Um, that's not us preaching from the pulpit. It's not that.
Mm,
It's not saying that you must be moral and how dare you not be moral, because we get those challenges too, all three of us.
mm,
We're human beings too. What we're saying is that you need to get clear logically as to what morality is. What is the
mm,
nature of objective morality through the study of natural law?
mm,
Because once you go into that subject, it becomes easier to self-reflect. Becomes hard to do that because self-reflection's not easy. But because people don't want to do that, the topic of natural law, which is very self-reflective,
mm,
is not pleasant, is it? It's not a easy.
mm.
Go on, Calvin. You were gonna.
Yeah, and because that reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier, what you just said. A big element here within society of not wanting to address morality or one's own behaviour is is really selfishism. It's perpetual me, and it's I'm all right, Jack, or I know something's wrong, but I'll keep my mouth shut. And these are all acts of selfishism. I'm not talking about, you know, uh, selfish interest where like, I need to eat, I'm hungry, of course, but we're talking about from an esoteric, deep um, perspective here. Whereas if you have masses of individuals within society not calling out wrongdoing because they're more concerned with their lifestyle
Or
or
getting
they
their car parking ticket sorted
yeah
out.
or yeah trying to save a few bob on council tax or challenging a parking ticket or whatever, you're not addressing the causal factors, which is your own behaviour and human behaviour in the aggregate.
Yes.
And so yeah, this perpetual me, I'm all right, Jack. I'm not going. I'm going to sit on my hands. I'm not going to do anything that is required to change the trajectory of the human condition. Is why we are in the current condition of duress.
Yeah.
So it's proportional and it is a numbers game. And
Yeah.
so you have to lose that selfishness and reflect upon one's own behavior. And a lot of it is admitting that you were wrong and that you don't have the knowledge required to understand certain things in order to change certain things. So it's being honest with yourself and then getting on with it.
Yeah.
But you have to have care. We talk about this a lot, don't we? This is care. The principle of care is required.
Yes.
If you don't have care, change is impossible. And hopefully now it's all out in the open regarding constitutional common law trial by jury. I'm hoping that people will be more willing to engage in the principle of care and do something, really do something about this. 'Cause
Yeah.
through education, mass education.
Yes. The first way that you can care, you're absolutely right, Calvin, is to do the reading and get your own knowledge better.
Mm,
Yeah, don't just dive in before you've done that because you're not going to be effective. You've got to obtain, getting into the trivium here, you've got to obtain the grammar first.
mm,
Um, and that's just not, so you can be very ineffective and you can be working against truth, even though on the surface you think you are. If you don't have that understanding, you can end up through the lack
mm,
of nuance and being too polarized, you can end up being manipulated. And
Yes.
there is so much manipulation going on out there in the freedom movement at the moment. There are big platforms that I'm watching very closely. I'm seeing this is the people who say just enough. And I put something on Substack about this just the other day about talking about the jury. I can't remember what I called it. Talk about the jury, but just enough, or just enough to I can't remember what it was, or only when it suits. Yeah, that's something like that. And I went into this, we went into the subject of manipulators, and there are many in the freedom movement, I think, and some quite big platforms as well, who are doing that, who are doing it through dissuasion, not talking and highlighting and propping up this information when it really matters. They do it when they're challenged, so that they can they can bat away accusations when they need to. But I'm seeing this quite a lot actually. And Damien,
Yeah.
can you explain to us the meme that you constructed quite recently that we need to put out a little bit more um, around Titus porridge oats, which we need to put out a bit more. Just
Yeah,
quite on that.
we've put it out, haven't we? We put it on Substack.
We have put it out, but I think we need to use it
But it
more.
is, it's about people diverting from the truth,
Yeah, subverting.
subverting the truth. There's a lot of them out there. Like I was saying, well, I don't know who I was talking to now, but in the
You don't
freedom
get to
movement,
name names.
no, I'm not going to name no names.
We know who we're
They-
talking about.
They're talking about Magna Carta and stuff like that. Now, I'm talking about trial by jury and stuff. But a few weeks ago, they were dismissing the Magna Carta and saying
Yeah,
that,
Yeah.
the Pope annulled it, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
And that's a problem for
yeah.
me
Yeah.
because although all this stuff has happened in the plane of effects, it's still for me leaving the lies in place. So we're not going to
Absolutely.
go any further forward if we don't address that.
Yeah, you've got to get to the root lie.
Yeah. In mass ignorance of natural law and how it's the dynamic that governs the human condition, and mass ignorance of how our constitution is supposed to operate.
Yeah,
Instead, they use. I think a lot of these people are using fear to manipulate people to focus on the current threat, which is trapped in the plane of effect. That's the effect of the condition that has been created through prior ignorance
totally.
by allowing it to happen through ignorance and non-action.
Yeah. Yeah, so as a manipulator, if you can prevent people from taking action, if you can cause confusion or
Mm.
cause delay in people coming to clarity about something by gaslighting and obfuscating or whatever, then yeah, there's a hell of a lot of that going on. So back to that meme. Um, Titus Oates. Just explained who Titus Oates was, Damien, because people watching this, that's the code which you're going to see more and more that we certainly will be using out there on
So
Substack or whatever it is.
Jordan Charles II's reign, it's got a lot to do with religion.
Yeah,
Titus Oates was a character who spread vicious rumors about Catholicism and about Catholics, which were based on lies, really, and resulted in, people being charged and hung, killed, at least 30 people.
yeah,
But he was just a blatant liar, just
absolutely
blatant
staggering.
lies.
All through his life, wasn't he? Just everything he
Just,
did was just
and he still, I know he went to prison for a short time, but when William took the throne, he was
after the
released.
Glorious Revolution, after
He
the
was
Bill of Rights.
released. Yeah, he was released
He was
and
released.
pensioned off.
So
And the
he'd been
pension,
he was a disinformation agent,
yes.
Right.
had caused absolute chaos, and then immediately following the Bill of Rights, William III released this disinformation agent. Just,
And he carried on doing the same stuff.
yes,
This information
yeah,
still the same.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so
Interesting
Titus, so
character.
you put a meme together involving what was it, Titus porridge oats? That
I changed it because of obviously his second name gave me the idea for the breakfast. Titus porridge oats for all these Decepticons within the freedom movements,
yeah,
just to start the day right.
absolutely. Make
You
sure you
know,
have a good
to carry
portion.
on spreading lies. So
Yeah,
yeah, interesting stuff.
no, that's good.
We-
Well, we should probably wind it up at that, guys. Thank you very much because it's been really interesting. We've talked about loads, and there's loads more that we need to talk about. But there are things we didn't go into, but we sort of touched on it. I was intending to go into more, but it doesn't matter. We can do that, another time if you want to. So Damien, just to finish off, do you want to just let the viewers know of your channel and of where they can find our history videos and anything else that you're up to? Anything else you want to finish with? Any sort of closing thoughts?
So the 17th century history stuff can be found on my YouTube channel, which is the real Magna Carta 1215 at the People Rule.
So I'll put that. It's like a script whenever you do one of these kind of. I've never done one of these interview things before, but yeah, I think you're meant to say at that point. I'll make sure I put that in the description. So I will do that. And in fact, as people know, I've put them in the news section in Common Law Constitution quite often. So whenever Damien and I produce another 17th century history, I tend to put it in there as well. So in the news section, you'll see those as well. That's brilliant. Any other thoughts, Damien? Closing?
I don't think
We
that's it.
we dealt with lots, so that's great.
Yeah, there's another video. There is another video. I'm just putting the finishing touches to the editing stage of it, and that
Oh
will
yes,
probably be out over the weekend,
yeah,
definitely.
we
So that
recorded.
is the second chapter of part three,
Okay,
which we've just done not long ago, to be
yeah,
honest.
we
So I've got
recorded
another
that
video for
last
people to
week, didn't we?
watch, and then we can move on to bigger stuff, which is going to be a bit mind blowing for a lot of people.
Yeah, convention, parliament, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, and I'll make sure that video is on Common Law Constitution. Calvin, any final thoughts? And because you're putting some stuff out quite a lot at the moment, a huge amount actually. Go on.
Yeah, I've been quite enjoying doing the writing.
Good.
Um, uh, well, I put out videos on YouTube and articles on Substack, and on both on YouTube, just my name, Calvin Perrins. So just type that in on either, and you'll find my work. And to finish, I'll just say that anyone who hasn't seen the series that you two have done on the Inglorious Revolution, I'd really recommend that because the parallels with then and now are striking,
Yeah,
and there's so many lessons to be learnt from that. Uh, and and if you're inspired by this chat, and please get stuck into to the material, get educated, get knowledgeable, and then please educate others. That's always my message regarding this.
fantastic. Yeah, and you're on Substack as well, Calvin, aren't you?
Yeah, I said that. Yeah,
Yeah,
YouTube and Substack, just Calvin Perrins on both. So
fantastic. So I'll
yeah,
put those up as well. No, that's great. Guys, thank you very much. Hugely enjoyed the chat. There aren't many of us who get this nuance of exactly how the Constitution is supposed to operate, and there are a lot of people out there talking about the Constitution, but crucially, there are contradictions I find in a lot of what they're saying, and so there aren't many of us, I think, who've understood it like this by pulling all the layers back and understanding it in this form, and so it's a great pleasure to have some other people that I can talk to about on this stuff. So thank you again, and if you guys are up for it, I'm sure we'll do it again. But to the viewers, thank you for watching, and yeah, look out for more. Thank you very much. Cheers for watching.